Hey guys and girls, Bored now back with you. On this video I return to Ozark, so this is going to be my review of Ozark Season 4 Episode 9. The episode is called Pick a God and Pray. Full spoilers from the start of this review in case you haven't seen it. So I'll say another solid episode. I didn't enjoy it as much as the last episode, and I think that's just because the pacing slows down a bit in this episode. There was obviously a bit more of a focus in the last episode where it was largely centered on the whole Chicago thing and would Ruth kill Javi, would she not, what's going to happen there. And I think because it was a Ruth centered episode and you were sort of invested in her and her plight, that sort of made it instantly more engaging and suspenseful. This was still a good episode. I think there were a couple of scenes I wasn't that keen on, a couple of scenes that were a bit too slow, I think, at times, but I think it just sort of slowed down a bit because it's following such a big episode. And I guess that's one of the things with them splitting the season in two. Maybe the pacing feels a bit different, maybe because in some ways this feels like another season, even though it's not. It's just another half of a season. But overall I did enjoy the episode, and what it sets up at the end I really like moving forward. I think there's just a little bit of the danger of things getting a bit repetitive, but overall I would say it was a solid episode. So I'll start off talking about the birds in the episode, because at the start obviously they've cleaned up the mess from Javi being killed, and they start debating, whose fault it is and what to do from now on. And once again, there's this conflict of interest where Wendy, she has this great line where I'm not going to fall on the sword just because you fucked up. And she says, have faith. And it's the difference of opinion or point of view where Marty is almost conceding defeat, where he's just saying it's safer now and best for us if we just get out of this, and Wendy obviously doesn't want to. She's sort of so power hungry, so ambitious. She wants to come up with an alternative plan, and once again there's sort of there's tension between them on the whole handling of the roof situation. And as I said in the last review, there's almost a flip around there. I do like the sort of callback and references to season 1, because there was obviously some in the last episode. There's some in this, because Wendy almost puts it on Marty where she's like, you got us all into this and you knew what you were getting into. And once again she mentions the scene with Dell in the very first episode, and it's just sort of funny seeing how things have changed between the two characters since then. But yeah, in this episode they both try and get things back on track. They return to Navarro. Wendy talks to him in prison, because they talk to the FBI superior, who tells them that the deal is basically dead because of Javi being dead. And yeah, then there's sort of no going back now. But Wendy persuades her to let her talk to Navarro again. And initially the first meeting doesn't go very well. That's an understatement, because once again they tried to propose the same deal back to him. So this is a small complaint, because it's a bit well, we're sort of going back to this sort of idea where they've already done this idea. But by the end of the episode it's not such a problem, because I do like what they do with it. But anyway, initially he just says, no way, I don't trust you. I think you had something to do with killing Javi. I sort of hold you. So he's like, fuck you, fuck the FBI. And fair play to Wendy, because once again she pulls out the big guns, because she does come up with this idea where she actually lies to Marty and lies to the FBI woman, where she says, well, he's actually open to the idea, which of course can be further from the truth, but she sort of comes up with her way to deal with it, which is he wants to be out of isolation. So if you get him out of isolation, he's more likely to play ball with us. So they arrange that, and she also says you need to tell him that then we were responsible for that. So things get rolling a bit, and the name of the episode comes from the fact that Omar sends a message to Wendy through his priest, and he comes to the house at one point, and this is one of the scenes that I'm not that keen on. It just didn't interest me for some reason, but they come to the house anyway, and he's using someone innocent looking like this to deliver messages back and forth. And the sort of twist in it is then the priest is actually thinks that then it's better if Omar stays behind bars, so he's actually, he's conveying this to Wendy, and you get a bit of religion type talk, which we've obviously had in this show. So what eventually happens is, because when things are starting to move forward again, the birds speak to Omar, and he says, well, I've got no power from prison. I can't really take control of things from prison. I need respect again amongst the cartel and my sort of guys in Mexico. And that's where they propose the idea, or Marty actually comes up with the idea. Then he goes to Mexico and he speaks on behalf of Omar, and he actually starts operating things. And obviously this is a very bold move, because he's taking his life in his hands again, because who knows how this will work out. Will they respect him? And Omar says, well, one way to get them on your side might be to say then I had Javi killed, and it's a way to reconfirm power for Omar a little bit more. So that's kind of the cliffhanger of the episode, Marty going off to Mexico and once again taking his life in his own hands, not for the first time. But that is actually quite an interesting idea. Also, another thing he tries before this sort of goes through is then he gets back in touch with Maya and actually asks her if they can return to the previous deal that they agreed with before, where Marty would give intel, serve 18 months, but then be cleared of all charges, that sort of thing. And Maya says, no way. She says, first of all, I don't have that sort of power anymore after I've been, given a slap down because of arresting Omar, but also, no, I'm not doing that. I just see you as a criminal now. And you can slowly see sort of sides being taken in this whole thing, where Maya is once again going to be an opposition to the birds, and which I like, because I like Maya and I want to see more of her as opposing the birds. I think that makes for some interesting drama. And also, Mal comes back into the picture in this episode, because so one thing he does is the father, and Nathan, Wendy's father, contacts him about Ben, looking for Ben, and as a result, Nathan comes to Ozark for a while, and he's got a new girlfriend, and they come for dinner, and he's there to find Ben. He's pushing that issue, and once again things are brought up between him and Wendy about the past, where he's kind of painting a very negative picture about one incident from her youth, but she later on says to Marty that what he's leaving out from that story is that he actually abused me. He beat me senseless that night. So obviously a lot of history between Wendy and her father, and so that obviously sets up some interesting possibilities. And also you see Mel talk to Helen's ex-husband at some point, and sort of gives him his theory on what happened to Helen, and then she was killed, and possibly by like a cartel, or that they were involved. And I think he's trying to get like the husband's support to like help him with the investigation. But Erin's there, and she says to the father that let's just leave this. It's not worth it. And I sort of like that because Erin obviously knows a bit more about the situation and maybe knows that it is sensible to like leave things alone. So we get a little bit of that. And I'll also say one of my favourite scenes from the episode is Mel and Myra, because they meet up in a bar and start talking the case, and he says what he knows. He says that there's something fishy about the whole Ben incident, because the day he went missing, Wendy rented this car and, took a trip, and something very suspicious. So it seems like him and Maya are going to start investigating things, but the chemistry and dynamic between them is just brilliant. I really want a spin-off between Maya and Mel. Them as like a buddy cop type partnership would be great, because he starts flirting with her, because he says something like, if you get information first, you make the arrest, or if I get it first, you buy me dinner. And he's like, oh, I buy you dinner, whichever way around he says. And she's like, are you trying to flirt with me? And he's like, yes. And he's like, how am I doing it? And she's like, terribly. And he's like, oh, come on, I was killing it. But I really love their vibe. I really dig their vibe. And I can only see good things of them like working together on this whole thing. And obviously the other big stuff in the episode, which involves Ruth, so that they obviously have Wyatt's funeral, because he shows up at the funeral home, and Marty offers to handle the funeral for Ruth, and you can tell there's still respect there despite what's going down, and he does take care of the funeral, and it's quite a nice emotional scene. It's quite well done. But the other big thing with the Ruth side of the plot is that Claire Shaw comes over for a visit with her, and she's got like a henchman. And she tries to blackmail Ruth initially. She says, I want you to give me supply now to make up for the supply, which obviously I won't be getting from Javi because you killed him. And they try and blackmail her by saying, we've got you on video doing it. And Ruth sort of turns the tables a bit. She comes out with a gun, and there's like a standoff, and she's like, it's a bad idea to try and kill someone you just tried to blackmail. And Claire sort of lets cooler heads prevail and actually says, this isn't so much a blackmail, this is like an offer, like a business offer. And that's the way she puts it, and by the end of the episode it looks like Ruth is going to take that offer, and I really like this. I think there's a lot of potential in Ruth now working for Claire Shaw and sort of opposing the birds, because in this episode Wendy has been trying to get hold of her, trying to keep the deal alive, and at the end Claire answers and says the deal is dead, stop calling me. So, but this is assuming she's struck a deal with Ruth, so that really sets up some interesting possibilities. So there you have it. That's Ozark for today. I will be back tomorrow with another Ozark review. Like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you guys again soon.